podcast. You made a kind of a viral moment when James Harden came to Brooklyn and he gave you that one-word answer.
Hi, welcome to Brooklyn, James. How would you describe your conditioning level now at this point in the season?
Great.
He did get hurt, so that was actually a very good question.
My question was, how's your conditioning?
That was hilarious.
And he said, great, and he lied.
Yeah, he's just smiling at you. You're expecting an answer. I'm waiting for an answer, and you never get it. So weird.
No, it went viral. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story.
Gets it off in time. It's going, baby! Big time Nets win.
The only Net fans you know? The only Nets fans you know? Man. I mean, come on, man. Or are these guys?
Welcome back to Only Net Fans You Know podcast. I'm Peter. Welcome to episode number 78. I've got another Hall of Fame guest. Nearly 20 years he's run Nets Daily. He's used to work at NBC. I don't know if you guys heard about that. Might have won an award. I don't know if you guys heard about that. Welcome to the show, Robert Windrem. What's going on?
Not much. Just, updating the website today because there's a lot going on. I mean, you had last night's end of season loss. You've had the rumors on the coaches. You have the Baggy Day interviews with the 4 players, and then 4 or 5, I guess it was, yeah. And then you have the WNBA draft in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, about 2 hours. So, we had a lot going on today. So that's what my morning was filled with. Updating the site, doing some stories, more than I anticipated. But it's the end of the season, so everybody is either looking back or looking forward or both.
I kind of like how you said that because a lot of fans this season have really talked about, is this the most frustrating season? You think about 12-70. At least we had a draft pick then. You had Brook Lopez, 21 years old. I think he was top 20 in rebounding, in points. He was 4th in offensive rebounding. You had Devin Harris, who the year before was an all-star. That was his age 26 season. So there was a little core. You could kind of see what was going on, right? What do you think about these 2 seasons?
12-70, there were so many issues. They were moving out of New Jersey. They were moving to Brooklyn. Yes, they had the worst record in the league. Yes, they had the top pick in the lottery, but no, they lost that and wound up with Derek Favors, who was not a very good number 3 pick. And I just think that people forget just how bad that season was. And I think one of the reasons why they forget is, because it's past. Veteran fans like me and you can look at that and think, well, there was some hope. But, going through that was just a drag. And each and every game that you lose, it had an effect, and it had an effect on the players, had an effect on the fans, had an effect on the franchise. And admittedly, you did anticipate that there would be a first, an overall number 1 pick, which obviously didn't happen. But also you were going from Bruce Ratner, who, to be quite frank, was probably, I don't want to say the least wealthy of the NBA's 30 franchise owners, to Mikhail Prokhorov, who, despite, Russian and et cetera, and he was the richest, at that point, he was the richest owner in all of sports. And so, there was some hope there. But, if you look at this year, and obviously we're all disappointed by it, and they don't have a pick, albeit in a terrible draft. But they have more NBA players than that team did, the 12-70 team. They have a number of young players. The Nets don't have a pick in 2024, and that's always been, their thinking for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's a bad draft, and as a corollary of that, you don't want to spend precious cap space on somebody who isn't that good. somebody who, if taken at 9 this season, would be taken at 25 in a good draft, for example, 2025. So I think that, there's probably more to be more. Let's put it this way: there's probably more to be realistic about um, this year going into next than it was at the end of 12 and 70. I mean, that's an opinion, and obviously, everybody has an opinion on this. Everybody who lived through it, anyway.
Since 1977, we've made it past the second round only 8 times. We've only
Mhm.
had 4 division championships, and we've been swept out of the playoffs 10 times. I
Yeah.
can understand where the frustration is,
By the
and
way,
it is.
all of that, it's you saying all that makes me want to quit. But let's just move on.
That's a
But
and
yeah,
the
I mean,
first.
I've seen a lot of bad basketball. I mean, we all have. We've all seen a lot of bad basketball. And I think that there were opportunities. Um, you know, there are a number of reasons why. I think it was difficult to attract people to New Jersey free agents. That is a given. Now, Rod Thorne made 2 of the greatest trades in NBA history when he got Jason Kidd in 2001 and then Vince Carter in 2004. And they got to the finals twice, and they were competitive for like 5, 6, 7 years. And then there was the opportunity that, to a certain degree, was squandered. And that was, you have the richest owner in sports in Prokhorov, and you go out and you sign or trade for 3 guys, the youngest of whom was 34, and the oldest of whom was 36. Recently, I went back and looked at the comments for that trade. And as people may or may not recall, it was Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and
Jason Terry.
yeah, Jason Terry, who at that point had issues that ultimately would lead to his retirement. And looking at the comments, what at that point I guess it was like the second most commented story in the blog's history. And out of the 2,437 comments, there was one who said, "We're giving up too much in terms of draft picks." And, wisdom can come in a lot of different ways. But, I try to reach out to that fan to ask him to come back and do more, because obviously he knew what he was talking about. Um, but, I think that, you know, it's a difficult proposition right now to figure out where they're going. I mean, I think they could go in a number of directions, and I'm not sure all of those are going to work. But you're right in looking at all of those years where they just didn't do well. And, the most recent sweep, they were swept the last 2 seasons they were in the playoffs by the Celtics and the 76ers. So, and that was in the first case with KD, with Kyrie, and they still got swept, by the Celtics. So, it's always tough to predict. I mean, a lot of, and I decided about 2 years ago to stop doing the preseason predictions of everybody, because if you look back, they were awful. I mean, and some of ours were awful, but we do it every year. But historically, people are, and perhaps for the sake of clickbait, but they were always so certain about what was going to happen. The idea, that at the beginning of this season, you could have picked the Thunder and the Timberwolves as the 2 top seeds, that you could have predicted Kevin Durant would be among the league leaders in minutes. Nobody was going to predict that either. I mean, over and over and over again. And I think that, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm not in the meetings. I have some insights. I have some sources, but in terms of looking forward, in terms of specifics, I have a sense of where they are with the coaching search, but I don't have a sense of what they're going to do with in free agency or trades. I mean, other than really pressing to get Nick Claxton on a good deal.
That's insane. I'm so happy you brought up like Rod Thorne and whatnot. I look
Mhm.
at Sean Marks, and listen, I'm not gonna kill Sean Marks here. I'm not gonna, go crazy and whatnot. If there's anything you don't like, I'm gonna take this out. I'm even gonna take out going back to Sean Marks and comparing him to Rod Thorne.
Mhm.
Where do you rank him as far as like building
Mhm.
construction, roster construction? I feel like Rod Thorne did a very good job molding that roster. Maybe not all the time. Maybe you got a Matumbo when he probably shouldn't have. But
True.
I look at Marks, and man, you had these guys. You add in, a coach that's never coached before. Hindsight is 2020, but you have 3 Hall of Famers, and you couldn't put the roster together. What do you think about his roster construction, and where does he rank with GMs?
Well, I think this. I mean, if you look back at Rod Thorne, two things. Rod Thorne had, as I said, the two best trades in Nets history. I mean, there's no comparison. Um, Jason Kidd and Jason Kidd and Vince Carter, two Hall of Famers. Um, and he did that with a lot of constraints because Bruce Ratner simply did not have the cash. Bruce Ratner laid it down; he would not pay any luxury tax. And Sean had both Prokhorov at the beginning and now Cy, both of whom are extremely wealthy and have put a lot of money into the team. If you look at Sean, he is certainly a much better drafter than Rod Thorne. Rod Thorne drafted, a number of guys named Williams who didn't work. Um, and Sean Williams, who had issues, and Marcus Williams had issues, and Terrence Williams had real issues, and those I think were 3 in a row. And I remember talking to somebody inside, and the process was basically screwed up. That it was not as analytical as it is now. It was basically, as he said, and this is a quote, Rod would call Jerry West and ask if somebody was any good. Things like that. So, first of all, Sean was great at the draft. Rod Thorne was not great. Sean was great at building the roster. So was Rod. The problem is twofold. I think one was coaching. And I think that Steve Nash and Jacques Vaughn, for whatever reasons, and they're different, just were not the guys. And I think that that's absolutely, critical to thinking about where we are. And the other thing is superstar management. And I don't know how you want to describe that, but basically, Sean would run decisions, and not just major decisions, by Kyrie, KD, James, and Joe Harris, 4 highest paid guys on the team. And, you know, and too often those guys had too much influence. And you could see that in any one of a number of ways. Now, superstar management is not something Sean Marks is going to be doing anytime soon. But you can trust him with draft picks. You can trust him with development, which is something that we didn't talk about. And you can trust him with finding some, although not too recently, some diamonds in the rough. And the other thing is that you can trust him with the player-centric culture. I talked to an agent, and a rather big one, a couple of days ago, and he said there are only 4 teams in the NBA that actually talk the talk about player-centric cultures. And he said those 4 were the Nets, the Clippers, obviously with Bomber, the Raptors, which was a surprise to me, and the fourth one was the 76ers. And he gave me certain examples of how they have been player centric and what they have done. And also provided me with the opposite end of that, which was one franchise who monitors free drinks from the vending machine. So I think that's a big deal. And people dismiss, when I say that the training center is first rate, et cetera. Well, that's where you work. that's where you go to work every day, and that's important. And there is quality scouting. I was told recently they have the largest scouting staff in the NBA. There is quality development. You can see that in the players that they took late and then became all-stars, near all-stars, whatever you want to say about them. And I think the development and scouting and culture are the things that are going to matter as you do this rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it. So at the bottom line, obviously, Rod Thorne did a better job because they got to the finals twice. Do I think in this era, which was very different from that era 25 years ago, that he can redo it? Well, whether he can or can't, I know that he's in charge of it. And I think he's a very, very smart guy. Very smart guy. And I used to meet a lot of really smart guys when I worked at NBC, and he's right up there. So you have to have faith in that, and a lot of his staff is very good. Now, the question, you hear various and sundry reports that are 180 degrees opposite, and because I don't have access to the locker room, I can't tell you who is accurate. But the agent I spoke to the other day said they all like each other. I talked to somebody who is in somebody who's works for another team, and he says it's all the culture is all screwed up. So and not everybody likes each other, and you don't have to like each other to win, but in a rebuild, it's it's something you do want to have. So the point, I think, is that Sean Marks is in charge. There is no doubt that he is in charge. He is not just in charge of the coaching search, which is the most important thing any team does, but he's also in charge of free agency. He's in charge of whatever the draft evolves into. I mean, I would not be surprised to see them get a second rounder, because they're very good at finding second round gems. So, but going forward, I know the phrase is the Rockets control the Nets picks for the next 3 years. Well, control, is also swaps. There's four elements left from the Harden trade. There's first rounder in 2024, first rounder in 2026, and there are two swaps in 2020, 2025 and 2027. So I think all of these, you can complain about Sean. People do, but on the other hand, he's in charge. So at this point, we shall see what we shall see. And other than Psy, it's basically those two. It's not like it was, in the past where you had the superstars having a lot of influence. And I think that's a big change. Bridges has said he's not interested in doing it. I would not be surprised. In fact, I had a hint of it today that, players are being asked about, coaching.
I wanted to talk about the roster. I've been very vocal about Claxton that probably should have traded him, because you're going to probably have to re-sign him to a very big deal. I understand he's 24. I was a very big defender of him. Analytics say that this guy is a god. I still think that he can get better. But looking at the cap, I was like, I want Dede to have a chance, and then they need a point guard also. Maybe you have to pay a point guard, right? So I'm like, what do you think about all that?
I think that the total amount that's that they're going to have to work with is they don't want to go over the threshold. I think they have 36.8 something like that $1 million that they would have as a cushion between where they are now and the tax threshold, which I would be stunned if they go over that. So if you can get Claxton for 20, or if you can work his contract in such a way that it is more friendly, I mean, that still gives you 16, 17, $1 million going forward that that you can sign people. They appear to like Schroeder. Schroeder definitely likes them. I don't want to bring up Ben Simmons because we know we don't want to count on Simmons again, but he's, if he's good, if he's healthy, he's good. But I think the key thing is also, by the way, they have the MLE this year, which is 12.9 million. So, I think that even if you gave Claxton 2021 in the coming year and building up to maybe 26, 27 in the fourth year, you still have some wiggle room. And, you found a couple of gems at the vets minimum. Not great gems, but, Lonnie Walker, depending on what point in the year you're talking about, Trendon Watford, depending on what point of the year you're talking about, were pretty good pickups. Dennis Smith Jr. was a pretty good pickup. I was a little disappointed in him offensively, but I think that I think they have some wiggle room there, and they can always trade somebody to get other
And relief.
if they want, to get more cap space. I don't see. Yeah, I don't see them trading. I don't see them trading Bridges or Johnson or, Cam Thomas, or certainly not Noah Clowney. But I think that you're going to see, they may do a couple of things. Again, I don't know this, but they have some wiggle room. They have more wiggle room than I think most fans think they do.
Do you think Dorian Finney-Smith is a net at the start of next season?
No,
I agree
and
with
that's
you.
not because he isn't good enough. I think he is. I think he's, he had a tough season, but he is a very valuable commodity. Could they get picks for them? The word is they could. People were disappointed that they only got 3 seconds for Royce O'Neal. I was talking to another GM who said he thought that was a great deal for the Nets because he was he's a free agent, coming up, and second rounders are more valuable under the new CBA. And if you look around, you can see a number of decent players who have been gotten for second rounders because the other team has, cap issues, etc. Steven Adams was traded for 3 second rounders. I think Campaign was traded for 2 second rounders and some cash. So I mean, they built up, and and again, I hear a lot of fans saying they're second rounders, they're throw-ins, not anymore. So they now have 10 first rounders, one of which is protected, and they have 10 second rounders. That's a pretty good over the next 7 years, because you can't do anything. You can't trade a first or second more than 7 years in advance. So that's why people use the 7-year metric. So 10 first, 10 seconds, and independent analysts, people like Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report and Sam Quinn of CBS Sports, have both said that they think that the Nets stash of picks is among the best in the NBA. And part of the reason, by the way, is because they're not protected, with the exception of the Philly pick in 2027, which is protected 1 through 8. So I think they're in decent enough shape there, but I think that Dorian Finney-Smith could bring them, maybe a 2026 first if they want to get into that. If they want to get into that draft, or he could give. I don't think again they're going to want to get into 2024, other than as a second rounder. But Dorian Finney-Smith is a good player. He's 30 years old. He'll be 31 soon. That is not the end of the world, obviously, particularly in the era of training,
Yeah.
great training. But I think that at the end of the day, that he's somebody who can get them some assets. And by the way, unless it's some complicated multi-team deal, they'd have to take something back for him.
Yep.
So we don't know what that would be. We don't know how, but he's making, I think, 14 million next year.
Yep. Something like that.
Yeah. So if you can trade him for picks and at the same time, reduce your cap space and give you more wiggle room under the tax threshold,
Yep.
it's a smart move to make.
I got my last thought-provoking question. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about Cam Thomas, okay? 22, great year. We all know that, right? Especially after Kevin Ollie took over. He kind of got a lot more room. He spread his wings. The numbers look great. But now we've heard that the Nets, but we've known this, that they're interested in Donovan Mitchell, right? In a deal, what is the value of a Cam Thomas maybe going out instead of having to send a Phoenix pick? What is Cam Thomas's value? What do you think about all that?
For somebody like Donovan Mitchell, you might have to do both.
That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here's the thing. There's going to be a lot of competition for Donovan Mitchell. And we have not yet seen, but there's enough rumors out there to suggest that the Cavs are willing to trade him. But is he the only target? I don't know that. People talk about that, but people who are talking about that are not people in the Nets circle. Yes, it's obvious he's from New York. Yes, it's obvious because he's friends with Bridges. Yes, it's obvious because he wants to go to a bigger stage, not just New York, but most anything is bigger than Cleveland. So all of those things, yeah, he may be very well interested in the Nets. But I'm not sure how many first rounders he's worth. I think that he's a very, very good player. He's got some injury issues. But again, there may be others that we don't know. I mean, that's the other thing is, as long as I've been doing this and as long as I've been a fan going back to 1994, I'm always shocked. I'm shocked at trades that suddenly materialize. I'm shocked at how the CBA works. I'm shocked that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving want to play for the Brooklyn Nets. There's all sorts of things that can happen, and trying to project what they're going to do, I think, is just foolhardy. And the other thing is, they keep things very, very close hold. I've been told they refer to them as these state secrets. They'll talk to you about general things, but they will not talk to you about trades. They will not talk to you about coaching candidates. They will not talk to you about free agency. And I think that all of those things are going to be somewhat in play, this summer.
I'm going to get to a kind of like a rapid fire type of section over here. Who's the starting point guard next year? Opening day.
Ben Simmons.
Ooh, that's a good one. Who's the starting center come opening day?
Nick Claxton.
What is your favorite Nets jersey?
In Brooklyn, the Corgi.
What about New Jersey era?
The classic one that they had when they went to the finals. It was just NETS across Whitefield. I thought they were very classy.
Listen, I got to talk about this. You made a kind of a viral moment when James Harden came to Brooklyn and he gave you that one-word answer.
Hi, welcome to Brooklyn, James. How would you describe your conditioning level now at this point in the season?
Great.
He did get hurt, so that was actually a very good question.
My question was, how's your conditioning?
That was hilarious.
He said great, and he lied.
Yeah, you're just smiling at you. You're expecting an answer. I'm waiting for an answer. You never get it. So
No,
weird.
no, it went viral. I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. My son's girlfriend is a big NBA fan, and she has friends who are big NBA fans. And some friend of hers called and said, "Did you see that guy asking Harden about his conditioning?" And my son's girlfriend said, "Yes, it's my boyfriend's father." So, but yeah, I mean, and by the way, she lives in Boston, so I mean, this
Yeah,
went
it was on
far, far.
ESPN.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that was hilarious. I was dying. I thought,
All right. And
and
by the way,
he didn't actually answer.
I did it from this room, and it was dark, so the background here was like eerily dark. So that made it even a better. But how's your conditioning? Great. Yeah, that big
Just
smile.
smiles. And then
Yeah,
that was it. That was
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
Okay, was there anything you want to plug?
No, I mean we're gonna have tonight. We're gonna have two reporters at the WNBA draft, which is now an hour and a half away. The Liberty have the number 11 pick unless they move up. And I think that we're going to know about the coach sooner rather than later. I've been hearing the same thing, and his sources are a lot better than mine.
Thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to watch. I have 2 humongous episodes to drop next week. Take a look out for that. Follow me at NetFansYouKnow on Twitter. If you like the podcast, subscribe. Have a great day. Have a great night. And we got a lot to discuss in the next 2 episodes. I'm out.